Howdy YouTube and welcome. This is our regional report for May 2023 at the Santa Clara Regionals for Yu-Gi-Oh! And with us here at Team Pete Boribo, we have three awesome people here who attended the event. First and foremost, we have one of the people who played through the event, Toby. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. The next person who played in our event was Carlos. How are you doing, Carlos?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing excellent, thank you. And last but not least, the gentleman who judged at this event. We have Forbes. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. I think all of us are pretty tired still from yesterday.
Yeah, it was a long day.
Oh yeah, it's been a long one. So honestly, but it was a fun. Honestly, I don't know about you guys, but I had a great time. It was a really fun event. Honestly, it was a good. I feel like it was a pretty decent turnout for, especially coming up to the end of the season. So yeah, I personally have no complaints about the event myself. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and just kind of get straight into it though. I really want to talk about basically like certain rulings that kind of came up over the event, and also what decks you guys played, because both of you guys did receive your invites. Congratulations, by the way. So let's go ahead and just start with Toby first. So out of curiosity, what did you play this weekend?
Played purely. I ended up placing exactly 16th after 9 rounds, going 7-2.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Deck didn't feel particularly amazing, and I feel like I had to play out of some really weird and tight spots. I'll save the matchups for the deck profile later, but it was a fun deck. I honestly didn't feel like it was the best choice going into the tournament, but last minute, too late to change. I already kind of put all my eggs in one basket, but it was a lot of fun.
Awesome, good to hear. Carlos, how about you? Because you also got your invite. What place did you get? If you know.
25th at the event. I played Math Mech. I feel like the deck did a really good job. It was very simple, so I had work before the event, so it was a really long amount of time I had to go without any breaks, and so I feel like I'm playing a deck that's pretty simple, had a lot of versatility and non-engine that really helped me just stop them from playing, and with one card starters, it was just great to be able to play. Basically stop them, and I'm able to kill in one turn, so the deck overperformed for me.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I will say, like, with MathMech, I know it's a really strong deck for this format, just specifically because it has a lot of slots for non-engine cards, which gives it a huge edge against a lot of matchups.
Absolutely. I think just the ability to play that many hand traps, and just, like I said, the one card starter, you draw 4 hand traps in circular and you're golden. Like, that's amazing.
No, absolutely. With regards to gameplay for your deck, though, Toby, going back to the Pearly deck, like, how did your deck perform? Because I know with your deck, it does rely a lot on the quick play spells to be able to perform, and I know there are a handful of them that are a little bit stronger than the others. So, did that actually affect gameplay a lot throughout your tournament experience?
Absolutely. I think the greatest advantage was a lot of my opponents either didn't know at all, or were pretty much unfamiliar with a lot of the cards or the interactions that they had. Most people had to read the cards multiple times, especially the XCs. I had a lot of people going, wait, that's not once per turn? That's also not once per turn? What's once per turn? And freaking out after they realized they just spent 3 interruptions on basically nothing. They also didn't realize the XCs had multiple effects, additional effects that tacked on, and so I think in terms of how I felt overall going into the event, the deck definitely overperformed, even though it was pretty hyped up along with Super Heavy Samurai as 2 of the up-and-coming new decks. But honestly, Kashtira is still the best deck. Don't like it at all.
Yeah, as long as you don't play the deck like I did this weekend. Holy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're on legs, pain, scary.
Yeah. No, so definitely wasn't the greatest pick going into Kashtira. Luckily, only played against 2 of them and went 1-1. Shoutouts to Geo. And yeah, so really can't complain. Sometimes you just gotta make them have it. I got heralded, multiple times throughout the event. People were playing Kurikara, got Lava Golem, so people were definitely prepared for the deck, just not prepared they were prepared in their deck choices and tech choices. They just weren't prepared for it as far as practice, and that was definitely a very big advantage. Moving Gamma to the side also helped. I hate drawing drivers.
I would like to disagree with him there. I feel like Gamma was the best card in my deck all day. Like,
honestly, I will have to agree with that as well. Playing through my weekend, Gamma was a very, very strong card. I mean, I know I didn't do as well as I hoped. But granted, for me, I was piloting Cashier over the weekend, but I literally made it the night before because I was gonna actually go in and be spicy and be like, I'm just gonna play Exosister. But I basically thought about it and was like, I feel like Kashtira basically does everything that Exosister does do, but it just does it better. So I decided to go in with Kashtira, and I thought it would be honestly a lot easier to pilot than I honestly realized. But it actually there was a lot of times I was missing like certain activations, like especially for my Shenga era effects to block zones. I was missing a lot of those, constantly. And I kept forgetting about certain effects. And honestly, I think I could have played a little bit better if I honestly had a lot more experience with the deck. So I will say that. But honestly, I mean, still, regardless, I mean, I'm surprised I did as well as I did, especially at the beginning of the tournament when I basically by up to round 4, I basically was running undefeated. So it just after that, it was just when it started getting really scuffed. I will say that for me at least. But I think at that point it was also just because of with regards to how I was playing the deck. So. But speaking of playing, or at least speak with regards to the event and playing in the event, the one person who didn't play in the event, Forbes, you, if I remember correctly, you judged at this regional, and this was your first one that the first regional qualifier, I should say, you've ever judged at.
Yeah, it was an experience. Shout out to AJ, Ryan, and Mike, and the rest of the team, the core TCG staff. They made it really straightforward with what we had to do. Shout out to everyone else who was working with me. It was hectic. It was basically, we worked a total of 13 hours with only about 50 minutes total of break. Like, no flame at all. I get it. It's a lot of work. My feet still hurt. We were constantly walking up and down the aisles. You guys saw me walking up and down the aisles. There were some really dumb judge calls.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say right now, how is it that it has been a year and people still don't understand how branded loss works?
Well, we can definitely get into that a little bit more later. But for right now, I do want to go back to Toby here, and I actually kind of want to ask, with regards to you playing in the event, what was one of your favorite matches for the event?
I think I have to give that to 2 of my matches. Both of them were people that I knew going into the event, and it's just a tie for me. It's a toss up. So round 1 for me was against High. Shout out to High, super cool dude. Always brings the funny, and his goal the whole event was just to make it fun and really weird and difficult on his opponents, and he definitely did that. Our match was absolutely crazy. So long story short, round 1 it's Eldritch, which I know my deck has a horrible matchup against. Lost a dice roll, and so game 1 I'm facing down a skill drain protected by 3 other back row, and after I activated a quick play spell and draw phase to play around Droll, and yeah, I mean that was pretty much game. So we scooped it up, go game 2, and then game 2 I set up the Noir with the Vanity's Fiend, field spell, and continuous spell, and he looks at his hand, and then he said, game 3. And then game 3 was a little funny. I was able to grind through his interruptions and got there with a little bit of a scuffed interaction that we didn't catch at the time. I don't think it would have mattered long term, but it happened, and it's a little unfortunate. It was a really cool guy. But that match, we both learned a lot because he actually flipped Ojama Duo and Ojama Trio to 5 zone lock me in game 3, going first. And had he not went Huaquero in my end phase and then made a Link Spider, I think it was Huaquero, I ended up switching my stuff to attack, taking 39, and then playing the game main phase 2 to make a Noir. It was an absolutely maddening game state. We were shrieking and hollering, and everyone around us was looking at us like we were crazy. But lots and lots of fun getting basically Mystic Mind in cash format. He learned a lot from that. He realized he could have just sat there. But it definitely helped out in his later rounds, and he definitely helped me out in my later rounds. So huge shout out to High for a really, really great opening match. Very, very scary every time I play him. And then the other match that I think takes the cake is my match against Daniel Gio. Shout out to Gio. Really, really great friend. Goes to our locals, and he also got his invite. It was Cashchira, which is never something you want to play against with purely losing the dice roll and just auto losing game one for the most part. It was very grindy. I at least tried to make him have it, and I made a couple misplays that cost me in the end. And then I think I was able to grind out game 2 and 3, or either I was able to get game 1 and then game 3. But it was hard fought. We finished the match with 2 minutes left. But always fun to pair against someone that you know and respect in a big tournament like that. Fortunately, lost to the other Cashchira later, but definitely learned some things along the way.
Speaking of High,
Excellent.
between rounds, I would talk to him, and you said make it funny. His goal, that entire regional, was not just to make it funny. His goal was to make someone not play. So for you, it was funny, but for some other people, they probably were not happy at all.
Oh my god.
And the thing is, High also got an invite.
Yes,
As
he
the funniest
absolutely
part.
did. Well deserved.
He got an invite.
Congratulations.
Ojama Eldritch.
Yes.
And
That's
his entire
awesome.
goal was just to ruin someone's day. And he spent that whole time, every time I told him, how am I here? How did I get here?
All I can say is
I know, my lord.
he midway through the event, because I kept talking to him throughout, and he's just like, if I can get top or get my invite, all I can say is all the little Eldritch players out there finally have a star to look forward to. He is now the official Eldritch role model. If he can do it, so can you. I can't wait for the Ojama Duo, Ojama Trio buyouts for the
Joel, if you're
time.
watching this, you gotta cop his leg.
Joel actually beat me round 2.
Ojama
That's the
Eldritch
kicker.
is the play.
Dude,
You just zone-locked him and
Joel
watched
clapped me up round 2 so badly. I played 2 Eldritch back to back. It was absolutely awful. Skill Drain is a hell of a card.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Honestly,
my
I don't know.
lord.
I feel like I saw, even through my experience playing it throughout the regional, I have to say I saw some funny stuff. I think honestly, the funniest thing for me that I saw, at least for me playing throughout my weekend, was I think it was round 6 when I played against I believe his name was Logan. He was playing Sprites, and mad respect because in game 2 I was like, all right. Like, I got this. Like, I'm going to break his board. I'm going to make, like, an Arise Heart. We're going to be fine, right? And so we go to battle phase. I'm like, all right, I'm going to swing in with Fenrir. And he was like, flip Mirror Force. What you got? I was like, who's playing OG Mirror Force in 2023? Who's actually playing this card? But I lost to
guy
it.
is.
It literally won him game 2 because I didn't respect it clearly. And I was like, okay, so we had to go to game 3. We went to game 3, and I made sure to respect Mirror Force, and I made sure to basically get rid of it before I went to battle phase, because I didn't want to lose to just a board wipe.
I just remember you telling me when I was running a side event, you just walked up, I just lost to Mirror Force!
in 2023, it's crazy. Yeah, that was wild. But I mean,
that
people
caught me
were
so
trying
off
out
guard.
tons of different stuff. It seemed like just really funny things, but some of it worked. Some of it actually stuck. It was cool. So I mean, mad props, honestly. All right, so speaking of funny stuff, Carlos, any favorite matches you can recall from your experience?
I had 2 as well. One was good in a funny way, and one was good because it was a good match. So the funny one was I went up against Melfi Sprite, and I got absolutely destroyed game 1, right? Game 2, I set up my board. I have Neo Hertz. Use its effect, make it 5k. Feel confident. Have Druid Storm. Have my 2 hand traps. My opponent basically has 1 card left, and I used up all my interruptions. Using Terahertz effect again, so it's at 8k. My opponent goes, okay, triple tactics talent, steal my Terahertz and hit me for game. That was the funniest way I have ever lost a Yu-Gi-Oh duel in an event. I wasn't even angry at all. I was just like, man, that was freaking awesome. So that was probably like one of the most memorable matchups for me. And just like with Toby, my favorite match of the day was probably with Shout out to Daniel Gio. Like that, it's a great back and forth. I got game 1. Game 2, I gave him the jump scare with the Eclipse, Book of Eclipse, and he had I saw the panic in his eyes, and he's like, "Oh wait, I have Ash." So he ashed it, and we went to the game 3 for a pretty good game, and it was just I never thought I would say this, but it was a fun game against Cash.
Nice, that's good. I mean, I can definitely say that's not said a lot about Cash Tira, so.
I think I'm the only one here who's consistently said I enjoy playing against Cash.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really mind playing against Cash either. I mean, granted, I guess, I don't know, I play the deck, so.
But then again, the deck I play is complete buns, so.
As you guys know, I usually play Rogue, but Rogue gets kind of absolutely dumpstered by Cash. So.
What do you mean?
Unless you're playing very specific Rogue, you kind of get destroyed by Cash. So, it kind of forces you to you have to like basically a lot of decks you just can't play this format just because a Rise Heart Pass is absolutely dreadful.
Rise Heart is a card. It is a very strong card, this format, still, honestly.
Just Macro Cosmos in general in this format is really strong.
True, honestly, true. So, Carlos, since we're still on you, how about any, did you have any interactions that you just absolutely despised? Did you have any least favorite matchups that you actually had, since I guess you apparently enjoyed the Cash matchup? So.
Okay, I know this is going to sound very hypocritical coming from me, but I really did not like playing against the 5 super heavies I played this week because it felt like it was either I hand trapped them and they ended on Baron Pass, or they played for 20 minutes and I'm just looking at my hand like, wow, this is the most miserable 20 minutes of my life. So I felt like it was just not very interactive. It was just like, all right, do I have hand traps? Okay, they end on Baron Pass. Can it be Baron Pass? And if I don't have hand traps, it's like, well, typical pendulum board, 6 negates, 7 negates. So, and the fact that they just have 1 card starters made it really rough because my one loss against Super Heavy was because they had 4 hand traps and Bike, and I mean,
that's all you
nothing you can do about that, right?
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh.
So,
says the pendulum player.
Exactly. He was just, I mean, what can I say? He wanted it more. I felt like Super Heavy, as a pendulum player, is just kind of frustrating to play against because either they absolutely kill you or you lose.
Understandable. Forbes,
honestly, though, yeah, I was going to say, honestly, though, it's been a while since we've really had something that like the community would call a solitaire deck, where it's just one guy playing and everyone else just sitting there staring like, well, I have to deal with this next turn.
Adding on to solitaire, I will say the one thing I do not like about playing Cash is that as a Mathmech player, a Rise Heart turning off half of my hand traps game 1 is pretty rough. I actually decided to play Mourner just because it doesn't need to hit the graveyard.
All right, Toby, on to you. Any interactions or any matches that you least favored with regards to your tournament experience?
Played 4 Eldritch. I was able to snake out wins against 3 of them. I don't know how. I even got anti-spell TC booed in a game 2 going second after I cheated out game 1 and somehow won that and went 2-0 on that match. I have no idea how that happened. Skill Drain was definitely not a fun card to play against. All 4 Eldritch players had Skill Drain in their list. They all at some point flipped it, and having to play through the Skill Drain was definitely tough because, shout out to Nate Shimada, I did not side any back row hate. He said I will simply not play against any back row decks, and guess what half my matchups were? I think that was definitely not very fun, but I think playing against Cash Tira was definitely the most unfun. Ironic because one of my best matches was against Cash Tira. It's because Gio's a gentleman. But then the other match I played against, shout out to Lucas, heck of a player. He was playing a list same as his buddy in Brazil, who was I think 8-0 in Brazil Nats at the time that we played. He was maining Dimensional Shifter, so I got shifted game 1 and game 2. And game 2, he went terraforming to search, and then he asked for a response, and I just knew it was wraps. My droll was dead, so lost in less than 10 minutes. So not very fun or interactive, but sometimes that's just Yu-Gi-Oh! That's what happens. At least it was a cool guy, but can't wait for a ban list to clean that deck out. It's not very fun or interactive, but
you do know
I
they're
also
not
don't
going
get
to hit a Rise Heart.
Probably not, but just the way the deck plays it. I mean, being like even the games where I get to play and I Zeus the whole board right against Geo. All it takes he had 2 planets and a Theosis, and in a lot of spots it's correct to Zeus the Theosis on activate, or the planet on activation. It's also there's also times where it's incorrect because they have Birth in hand as well, and I let it go. He went Unicorn, and from there it was just wraps. And sometimes that happens, but that's why it's such a hard deck to make some of these calls against when you only have 1 Zeus activation left after clearing their board, and so it gets a little dicey, and that's why it's just not very fun to play against, even though that was a really good match.
Fair enough. I mean, it's understandable, honestly, because even after playing the Kashtira deck over the weekend, I feel like it was never actually said to me when after like the matches, for example, but like in matches that I won, there was a couple times where I just kind of felt like my opponent just didn't have a good time. Like, I hate to say it like that, like, even though I enjoyed playing the deck, because I actually do like playing Kashtira. It's a really cool deck, and I actually, especially with how I performed with the deck, I actually do want to try and learn the deck a bit better and actually be able to pilot it potentially in the future a little bit better. But yeah, I can definitely say I understand the frustration where some people just it's just not very fun where if you just don't have a graveyard, you just can't play the game. Going back to you, Mr. Forbes, Mr. Judge Man.
Hello.
I wanted to talk to you about any like rulings that might have come up over the weekend. Is there anything that basically came up, especially since this was the second week that SIAC was actually legal? And I know there's still stuff kind of coming around. Is there anything interesting, I guess, that kind of popped up?
Oh, there were so many. Branded Expulsion and branded Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. That was one that came up a few times. People asking, if my target is banished, does the other monster get summoned? Or if the target is banished, does the monster still get summoned in the case of Expulsion? And this is a bit of a problem with Expulsion's wording. It doesn't specifically say summon those targets. It just says summon those monsters. That's just a wording issue. But keep in mind, when a card is banished from the graveyard, it is technically no longer the same card. It has moved location since it's a new instance of the card, which as a result, Expulsion can't summon that monster. And the other question tied into that was, do I summon the other monster? And the answer is no. Both Sanctifier and Expulsion say summon both those cards, which means it has to be simultaneous. If the other monster doesn't hit the board, you can't summon the first monster, or vice versa. If one monster is moved from its location, it can no longer be summoned. Another one unbranded again, this is a ruling that a lot of people know, but also another quite a few people aren't quite sure about, is Mirror Jade getting Kaiju'd. It still goes off. It still counts as a card, it leaving the board as your opponent's card is removing it. The only time Mirror Jade would not go off, per se, would be it leaves the board and immediately gets banished, but it can't be something like Defigure because the card is still leaving the board. It doesn't move location from grave to banish or banish to grave. The other time it wouldn't trigger is if it gets returned back to the extra deck because it's no longer Mirror Jade. The card essentially never existed, right? Again, sort of a branded thing. I forgot which card specifically, but I got a few people asking, can you Ash an effect that sets a spell trap from deck? And the answer is no. Ash does not say anything about ashing a spell trap that sets from deck. It's specifically summon from deck. Keep that in mind, guys, please.
Another thing, now that we're in SIAC format, Wakashi's effect to place a scale as well.
Yes, you cannot ash that, but if Wakashi leaves the board mid-resolution of that effect, it cannot resolve. You don't get to place it. Another minor ruling that involving that is under anti-spell. Can they activate Wakashi? Can they activate the Super Samurai Souls? Yes, they can. It's technically not a spell until it's face up, per se. And anti-spell doesn't stop the effect of a card that's already face up from activating, which, sorry guys, anti-spell doesn't do anything except ruin the purely player's day.
It stops them from placing the scale, so yeah, that does help.
I will say real quick, I want to just kind of hop in with regards to Pearly. This didn't actually come up with me, but I will say I did dumbingly cite this at one point until I heard it later on in the day, because there was someone else who called a judge about this, because with regards to Ghost Bell and the interaction with, I think it's like, I can't remember what it's called, what its new name is. It's the Pearly Lily, when it tries to move across the wave. Yeah.
Pure Lily.
Yeah. Oh, Pearly Lily. Yeah. So
Something like that.
And I guess, because I guess there was a guy who called a judge because he believed he could Ghost Bell Per Lily's effect since it was taking the card from the graveyard. But it's because it's not special summoning the card, you can't bell it. I guess that actually came up, which was interesting. Because I faced Pearly in round 3, I cited it in, but I never saw it, so it never came up. Because I actually thought the same thing, and I was like, oh, well, I feel really dumb now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad it never came up. I still ended up winning the match without even seeing the bell, so it was fine. But yeah, that was something that I didn't realize either. I clearly need to read my cards more because Yu-Gi-Oh players.
We don't read. Even judges don't read. Believe me. There's a few times. Surprisingly, shout out to the judge team I worked with. We only got 10 appeals that entire event. The average amount of appeals that apparently, according to Anthony and Ryan, so again, head judge, floor lead, all that, is at least a whole page. We only had 10 appeals, and only like 2 of those were 1 or 2 of those were overturned.
Congrats, guys.
Shout out to everybody.
Nice. Yeah,
we knew our stuff. Or we were just so confident in being wrong and didn't get appealed. Either way, good job.
We clearly were all just that bad of players. We just were like, well, he's the judge. I guess he's right.
Shout out to you guys though. The judge team was
amazing.
really great.
Yeah, honestly, no. The judge team
very
did do a
smooth
really good
event.
job. Yeah, it was
very smooth event. Also, shout out to the judge team for allowing me to get basically a 20 to almost 30-minute lunch break after round 1 because So a little context: the players next to me and High were going through a branded ruling, and by the time I went to buy my food from the robot ramen machine maker thing, which was like godsend.
That thing was not bad.
Yeah, I peeked back in, and they were still going through that same ruling. So I was like, sick. I have enough time to eat.
Was that the round where one of our friends had just had like a crowd around them? Is that the right one?
It was something about they were trying to resolve branded opening with tragedy and Aluber's effect all at once, but they were trying to go backwards after they had already progressed the game state.
I wasn't part of that one, but
it was a really weird. The game state was misrepresented. It was all sorts of stuff. Shout out to the player opposing them. They were very, very patient and didn't give anyone a hard time. It was just a really weird situation, but shout out to those guys because I don't think I would have made it through if they didn't give me that extra extension.
Going back onto the ruling thing real quick, so we touched on Purely. This is a little one, and this occurs to a lot of cards like this. My friend Purely, when you first place it, doesn't do anything. There is no effect to the card. It is just placed. So in theory, you could use an effect to negate the card, but unless the card says negate and destroy, you effectively wasted your negate. Because they can still use My Friend Purely normally after your initial negate, because you negated nothing. There is no base effect.
The closest you to negating My Friend Purely's Ghost Ogre.
That's not a negate. That's just a.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean.
Go away.
Yeah, just go away.
Or with the age-old joke, MST negates when you're trying to resolve My Friend Purely. It doesn't negate. It just
as long as it's an ultimate rare, it will negate. Legally, that was a joke.
Another ruling brought up by our friend Andrew. This is one that I've been seeing getting asked a few times across the board on like most judge groups. A TCG exclusive archetype, Cold Pride, because it's a new archetype. There's a lot of rulings without precedence because it never existed in the OCG. The main one I think was called the Fusion Pinballer. If Pinballer gets Ghost Ogred on its effect, does it still take and do those targets get destroyed? Well, not targets, do the things it's trying to equip get destroyed? Answer is no. So according to AJ, the head judge, Anthony T'Challa, that ruling with Relinquish, which was most people were using as a precedent, was actually misruled, if I remember correctly. Because if you're resolving backwards, which is how a chain should be resolving, Relinquish never resolves to steal the card. You target it, it's targeted successfully, but it never moves. It hasn't happened yet. And by that logic, same with pinball. When you're resolving the chain backwards, you ghost target. Pinballer gets destroyed before it can successfully take the card. Thus, you don't get the removal. The card would be broken otherwise. Like, that'd be insane. But yeah, so that's the main thing I've gotten off of for gold prize. That was the main question we got. And then I will say the new policy update came up about the rewindable game states. That has happened a few times. Keep in mind, you can call a judge to oversee it when it's happening to make sure it is proper. Happened a few times. Always remember, when you're at a regional or a big event, the judges are here to make sure things go right. Right? We're not here to be a power trip. Like, people have accused judges of like abusing their power, trying to just make stuff up on the fly, and that's why there's sometimes so many appeals, because they assume we have our heads up our own butts or something like that, right? Most of us aren't like that. Most of us are just trying to make sure everyone gets to have fun. Sir. Sir, stop it. But there were two major fiascos over this regional that I saw, and everyone else who was there, you guys probably saw it as well. The first one was...
I think literally Carlos and I sat next to one when it was happening.
So I'm going to talk about the one that was earlier in the event. One guy, person I know, okays the prosperity resolution. Opponent adds card to hand and immediately sets 3 without asking, on resolution, do you have a response? The person I knew had a response. So this was Kashtira versus a back row deck. The Kashtira player had Birth on the field, so Birth and a Rise Heart. So technically, after the prosperity resolves, Rise Heart has to mandatorily attach a card, and then Cash player has the option to activate Birth. The opponent did not ask for response and just did it so quickly that the player could not respond, cannot do anything, which is, you got to remember the steps of the game. Steps of the game are really important, especially in this kind of format where it's really fast. So we got called, and that was one of the biggest fiestas I've seen as a judge, because both me and the floor lead literally had to rewind the game state and force the player to go, prosperity, response, okay, on resolution, response, okay, do the thing, Rise Heart attach, activate Birth, okay. The opponent player goes, response after a Rise Heart and that, no, okay, move on. Set 1, response, no, okay, set 1, response, no. And that continued, and we're like, this could have been solved if you just asked if your opponent had a response on resolution, right? So that was 4 different penalties.
Wow. Please
communicate. Your opponent is not a plank of wood. That is really important. Talk to your opponent. And this other one that was really bad was, it was round 8. One of our friends had an opponent who was insisting under Tryhard. Well, first that person assumed Tryhard worked like a Baguska, where if it's a defense position, effects don't work, apparently. No, Tryhard is not that. Tryhard's effect is, it is not affected by cards in defense position. Everything else is live. And the other part was he assumed you could never attempt to change a card that is forced into defense by a Rise Heart or Baguska into attack position, which is also incorrect. And the reason why that became such a big deal was because the card that his opponent was trying to switch to attack position was Super Heavy Samurai Wagon. Just a quick rundown, Wagon on summon changes itself defense position. You can change it to attack to add a Super Heavy Samurai, I think, soul card specifically to your hand, and that could very much change the pace of the game, like, because he gets that Soul Piercer or Soul Peacemaker, and he can just completely start the combo, and he's good. That guy, so literally 3 floor judges, literally went and went, yeah, no, you're wrong. You can attempt to change defense to attack. It's not locking it in defense. He appeals. We wasted another 20 minutes on this appeal because he kept trying to argue with the head judge about, it works like Bagusa. No, it doesn't work like Bagusa. Keep in mind, cards that lock a card in defense position, unless it specifically says cards' battle positions cannot be changed, do not keep a card from changing its battle position.
That is correct.
Also, Tryhard is not Baguska. They work fundamentally differently.
The only thing that Baguska and Tryhard I feel like have similar is that they switch when they switch everything to defense. That's the only thing they have in common.
That's the only similarity. And
But yeah, regardless, yeah,
Read
I
your
mean, it is
cards.
correct though. Because also, the only other reason to further explain, I guess for me, like Baguska and Tryhard, with regards to their continuous effect on board that switches monsters to defense position. So the only reason why it potentially, I guess in a way, comes up is you can manually switch a monster or use an effect that would like switch the monster to attack position. Then the continuous effect would then mandatorily switch it immediately back. And that actually kind of matters because there could be a situation where maybe someone switches a monster to attack position, and then it forces it back to defense because under Tryhard or Baguska. But then say later on in that turn, you remove the Baguska or the Tryhard. Well, since you already manually tried to switch the position of that monster, you cannot switch it in the same turn. That actually is something that where it would matter, where it would actually come up. Because if you don't switch any of the monster positions and you remove the Tryhard or Baguska, you can technically switch those monsters to attack and you're good. If you do it prior to while they're still on the board, then you cannot. And that's at least with regards to that why that actually it at least in a way makes sense of why it's not locking them into defense position.
Yeah, so one last ruling, and this is one that didn't come up for me personally, but I do feel it needs to be addressed. So there's a card out there everyone knows and hates, Skill Drain. Freaking sucks to play into. Similar like Mystic Mine, kinda, not really, but Super Heavy Samurai players, you guys are running a card in your extra decks. Some of you think it out Skill Drain when it's not already on the board. Cleaver Genius cannot out Skill Drain or Mystic Mine unless it was already on the board on resolution before the card resolves. This is due to the fact that if Skill Drain and Mystic Mine are already face up on the field, and their lingering effects and applied effects are already applying, Cleaver Genius never has that opportunity to give itself that protection because its effect is negated on hit. The moment it's on the board, its effect is already gone. It's never had one. Cleaver Genius has to be already on the field to give itself its protection in order to be protected from Skill Drain, Mystic Mine.
A similar precedence could also be Trap Trick Sarah, which I know came up a lot when the Trap Trick structure deck dropped. If the Sarah is already on field, then Skill Drain doesn't affect it. But if the Skill Drain's flipped and then your opponent makes Trap Trick Sarah, then its effects will be negated.
Similar ruling I can only think of essentially would be Jinzo versus Skill Drain, because the Skill Drain's already up and you summon Jinzo, it doesn't negate Skill Drain.
Because Jinzo wasn't there.
Correct. Yeah, that's just one of the ones I could think of from just like older Yu-Gi-Oh, like way back when. But
Spell Counselor versus Mystic Mine.
Yeah, so
Same thing.
Doesn't work. Essentially, yeah, basically. So
important to note with all of these is that with SIAC format and with every new set, there comes up new rulings with old cards, new rulings with new cards, as well as new interactions and the way that different things interact as the meta continues to evolve. And so for both experienced and newer players or even returning players, I know a couple personally who come back to the game and they're like, oh, that doesn't work how I remember it. I think it becomes really important to learn your rulings and learn your card interactions, because as far as my tournament run went, my opponents not knowing how certain cards interacted or not expecting certain interactions definitely played into my favor. For example, Happiness being able to bounce Floodgates as I'm chaining its effect, and my opponent just sitting there going, it does what? Oh, it does it again? And again? And again? And then they look at their board and everything's wiped, and then you make it more. So I think it's very important to learn these rulings, and it definitely, as I play more and more, simply knowing more rulings or knowing interactions than your opponent definitely helps. And then you play against someone who knows their stuff better than you, it's definitely a huge disadvantage.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
even though I did not prepare a lot for this event, I definitely took into account a lot of the rulings and stuff, because you kind of need to know, right? Like, so that, for example, knowing that a lot of the Purleys are sadly not hard ones per turn, right? Like, you gotta kind of know that, because or else you're gonna get caught lacking, and that's where easy winnable games become just thrown, right? You just throw games. The main thing for me this event was besides not forgetting to search off a circular, was not to play into Gamma. Like, for me, that was like the main thing I did that tournament, was not activate any effects until they had something on the board. because Gamma was so prevalent. And the one time I didn't do it, I got punished for it, as Michael can attest to.
So I'm the one who did it.
Yeah, he's the one who did it. So I feel like just knowing kind of how the metas work, right? Like, just knowing that Gamma is so prevalent in the format, you kind of want to know, like, okay, I do not want to activate any hand traps until they have at least something on board.
I have to say, in my opinion, I feel like with everything that happened throughout this weekend, with all the policy changes, I think the weekend, honestly, the entire event went over really smoothly. I think we finished like with the actual tournament itself, like ended like before 9, which was
It was like 8 o'clock or 8:30
Yeah,
by the time we
yeah,
actually
it was
finished,
like
which
around,
was
like,
We
8:20.
actually
crazy.
finished ahead of schedule. AJ and everybody was really surprised that we got out at around 9 o'clock.
Shout out to the judge team, actually, straight up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
no,
And
they
shout
did
out
a
to-
phenomenal job, and I highly look forward to attending more events with Core DCG personally.
Hope you guys will have me on the judge team again. I had a great time. It's a great first experience, and I learned a lot. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we are able to see you guys at future events in the future as well. Because honestly, all of this event was really fun. I had a really good time, and it would be really cool to see other people also attend future events, and that way we can kind of see you guys hang out and all that stuff as well. So, without any further ado, anything else that anyone wants to add in real quick? Any shout outs that Toby or Carlos, do you guys have any shout outs you guys want to throw?
Shout out to everybody at the regional. Had a very, very cool opponents. Everyone was, for the most part, was really, really cool. Not a whole lot of salt. Shout out to Card Art. There were a lot of people from Card Art. Shout out to Legends and everyone who couldn't make it. And then I'll shout him out again later. But huge shout out to Jerry. He lent me basically half the deck, and so wouldn't have been possible without him. Love you, bro.
I want to give a shout out also to the Legends. You know, you guys great testing partners, funny dudes, great guys. I want to give a huge shout out to Daniel Kammer. He got me the Guardian I needed for this deck. He helped me learn combos. He was like a great mentor, teaching me the one locals I had before this event, just how to play the deck better. And I honestly don't think I would have done as well if it wasn't for him. Also, shout out to Brian for helping me learn to search off a circular. It's really hard for me to remember to do. And shout out to Michael for teaching me to never ever activate Droll if there's no monsters on the field.
You're welcome, bro. All right.
Next time, just draw the Ash.
True.
All right. Well, with that, I guess this will be a nice way to end our tournament report for the regionals in Santa Clara. So go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that way you can see many more of these videos and reports that we decide to post on our channel. Next coming up will be a deck profile for the guys who actually got their invites, so that way you can kind of see what they were playing, their lists. And so hope to see you guys next time. With that, take care. Peace.